Hey everyone, it's Paul here, and today we are going to be talking about Monster Train. Now you may be wondering, why are we looking at a computer screen here? Normally we play board and card games. Well, this is a card game. It's a card battler, and it's one of my favorites, so I wanted to talk a little bit about it. I will say it's a recent favorite because this hasn't been around for a very long time, but it is really great. The art is amazing, and the gameplay is really addictive. So here we're going to do a quick run. We get to start out with some random cards. And then the first thing we get to do is kind of pick between some of these starter events. They just kind of get you going. You get to do all of these. You get to pick what effects essentially you want your characters to have, maybe some cards. A lot of this is random. It is a rogue-lite type game. So these aspects of it are at least somewhat random, and you can see here what these items do. We're going to choose the 50% dazed because that seems like a really good effect that could really help us out. And then between these two, we're choosing the thorn fruit, which that sting is quite helpful. It doesn't cost anything at 0 cost. You can see in that 0 spell, the little yellow dot. So we're going to go ahead and pick that. And then we're going to get started. Well, there's one more thing. We get to choose what upgrade we want to do for our hero. So again, you can experiment with this. Sometimes it's fun to not play it like very seriously and just kind of play around with the different settings, see how they go. You can obviously do as many runs as you want, and there's a lot of customization to it. So here we're getting to our first battle. The cool thing, if you're used to other types of battlers, like Slay the Spire or such, the main difference you'll notice here is that there's different floors that this game or these rounds take place on, and it really makes the battles feel a little bit larger than those other games, and it gives you a little bit more room to strategize. You know, there are certain cards that allow you to move characters from floor to floor. By default, they stay on the floor that you place them on. I really like these imp guys. Very good artwork, very fun animations. We're going to throw this train steward on the second floor just to kind of protect us a little bit for when we don't necessarily get all these guys. But you can already sort of see, so we cleared that first floor. Now there's a lot more that come in. You see a lot of them are coming in dazed, which means that they're not going to be able to attack the first go around that they appear, which is good. And let's see. This is that sting we picked at the very beginning. It does 10 damage to the front enemy. That enemy up there was just a 1, but we wanted to get her out of the way so she didn't do any damage. You can see the 3 on the left with the red icon. That is our ember, which is the kind of round currency that we have to play cards. So there, we just did a sacrifice in exchange for grabbing a card, and maybe some other particular effect. But I don't think that was a particularly worth it event, but shows you how it works nonetheless. So this restore health and apply regen is really great. Even if you don't need the health, the regen is really amazing. Like, it's a really great aspect of this game. Basically, between attacks, you can regen a number of health, and the more you apply these to a character, the more regens they'll have in between. So you can actually stack these up, and you'll get like 10, 15 regens, and start to do really high damage when we're talking about fighting the boss at the end. When I say high damage, I mean you have a lot of health, so they do damage, you do damage, and then regen happens, and that really does help out. So you can see I'm applying some of these, especially when they are low ember. It just makes sense. Alright, so this is the final wave. This first one was pretty simple. We skipped a part in the beginning where you can sort of choose to upgrade the battle for additional rewards, and I should have done that on this one. I didn't. but we'll be able to take a closer look at that on the next battle. So you can see the health here is 128. We're start slowly kind of knocking that down. We have a good bit of shield on our guy, which is important. It's really the health that matters with this, because without health, you're gone. So you can boost that and get a bunch more strikes in. Yeah, look at this impressive guy. Impressive. So these cards require you to essentially sacrifice another card that's in play in order to play them, but if you do play them, they are very powerful. So here's another cool thing. Every time you beat a battle, you go to this area and you can choose left or right path. Usually the left path has something to do with a Merchant of Magic, and the right path, a Merchant of Steel. But then there's some other items too, like the Forgotten Boons here, which gives us 75 credits. The other one, it's gain a Hell Horned unit. So we can pick between these two. Sometimes it's a hard choice. Pyre, which is that number at the top left, is what's important. We have to protect the pyre. I haven't really talked about this, but whenever enemies get to the top of your train, they attack the pyre. Pyre does attack back, but each attack on that pyre lowers it, and that's what you can't run out of that in order to win. So there are some kind of like pit stops where you can choose to gain 20 pyre instead of maybe another action, such as getting or upgrading a card. And there are some really interesting things you can do here. Some of the times, usually it's three to four things that you can do, and well, 2 to 5 maybe, depending. There's some strategy in picking them in order as well sometimes, which we can take a look at as we kind of go through. The order that you pick things can really help you maximize what you're doing. So there is a particular event, for instance, that lets you duplicate a card. And if you were to upgrade your cards and or get new cards before you were to duplicate, it gives you a lot more options. It's almost always better to do the upgrades on whatever cards you want to do before you're going to duplicate them, because you're going to get, upgraded stats on that card. So doing these in a particular order can be really advantageous. So you can see I just did some upgrades. That'll help me out here. You can see here the on-off under the trial where it says armor emblem. Basically, if you give them armor, which I'm turning this on now, if you give them armor, the enemy, of 10, you get an additional reward at the end. So we did that, which means everybody's coming in with armor, 10 armor, which will make this a little bit harder than, say, the last one where we didn't have that. Or just especially if we didn't do it at all. So if you think you're feeling pretty confident, this can actually really help you out in the later game. There's a lot of times when you just won't do it, and then in the later game, you didn't have coin that you may have needed to upgrade certain cards. So, you can really use this kind of as you feel like you're ready for it to do the upgrades. Or the challenges, I should say. So you can see here they've moved up to the second floor. I don't have anybody there, so it's going to be an easy traverse upward. This is where you got to start laying cards at every level, and there is strategy in it. And I really do think that just that piece of strategy alone is really unique and beneficial on what you get with Slay the Spire, and a lot of other games that are like this as well. You have Grift Lands, for instance, very similar type of structure, but you're not dealing with these multiple levels. So the levels definitely add something, make you think, and the animations and graphics, the sound, everything's really great. It's a really fun experience. I didn't think that I would actually like the levels, like the 3 levels there. I thought that it was kind of gimmicky before I played, and I really do enjoy it now. I really think I can see where they were going with it. So a lot of these characters you'll notice have like 1 health point. A lot of times you'll want to just knock them out early on if you can, because they do get an attack in, and avoiding that attack can be very beneficial in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's a pretty hefty attack and they only have 1 health, so you can either use a card to take them out, or you can see here this implode. It only works on the imp. I'm not going to sacrifice him this time, just for those 2. We'll do those stings, so that upgrade is really helpful, and we get a bunch of those sting cards. Yeah, the train stewards, usually those are the first thing I try to get rid of in these. They might be, some people may argue that they're worth upgrading. I certainly don't, but that's just an opinion. I feel like the imp cards are really cool, and there's a lot of other monster cards that are really heavy hitters. In the past, I have done some runs where I have upgraded the train stewards, but it's pretty hard to get them to a high level, like a high attack and high health, because I think that there's a maximum of upgrades you can perform on a card. I think it's 3, but I'm not entirely sure if that's true. I don't think it's more than 4. And when you start out with such low stats, sometimes it can be difficult to up them. Sometimes the imps, though, make sense, because they have kind of special features and abilities. You do get these little text bubbles every once in a while, which I thought was interesting. Certainly wasn't needed, but it is interesting to see. It does add to the flavor of the game. Also, the premise of this game is very interesting. You're sort of playing as the bad guy trying to defend hell, but you get all these kind of, I don't know, let's call them cute-ish cards, I guess. The style is it isn't really indicative of what you're playing, so it is neat. Yeah, so I do sometimes wonder, what my best options are in some of these cases. As you can see here, and I'm making sure that I use all my Ember, even if it's not really helping me out. Yeah, you can see here, this is where the shield and the health really come into play. I've got 0 health. There we go. I'm out here. And there you can see the pyre attacking back. Here you see once there's no more, the boss defeats a level, it gets frozen over. Hell freezes over. So I play the Sting. There's 47 here, so I've basically got, very little in terms of options, because this guy's not going to do that kind of damage. But I do have all these Sting cards, and that will knock this down significantly. You have to live in this wretched place. So we'll bring this all the way down to like 15, which I'm still going to be out. But then I've got these 2 not extraordinarily helpful guys above, train stewards. But they should be able to get an attack in nonetheless. And yeah, the nice thing is you always have the option to play more cards between those rounds. So if I happen to have these sting cards, there we go. Down to 3, and then just one more. Yep, the train stewards didn't even need to do anything. So these spell and monster cards really do have a lot of synergies. You use them both, they're both equally important. And because we had that lock on, or not upgrade, the challenge on, we get to grab a special card. So we'll pick this welder helper. And kind of take a little bit of a look at them. Their stats are here. And we'll pick this. Apply 4 attack and 4 spikes. Or 3 spikes. So the demon has some really great health and attack, which, you know, that you need to balance yourself out sometimes with those characters. Heavy hitters can really do a lot. They don't require a lot of synergy to be very helpful. Oh, and here we have the options. The pyre, we can restore 20. If we pick the left or on the right, we've got a variety of other options. And the items in the options in the middle, I think, are shared. But you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. There's quite a bit. This is pretty cool. This particular event lets you build a card in a bit of a thematic way. It gives you the parentheses to tell you what each thing means. So we'll create a damage card. And then we can choose, you know, what effect it's going to have, whether it's going to push, ascend, descend. And when you design these cards, you can make them so that they're meant to be applied to an enemy or a friendly unit. I mean, you can apply those cards to either side if you want. The game doesn't tell you, hey, this would be bad if you applied it to an enemy. So it's all up to you how you want to build these cards and how you want to use them. So we have a card here that deals 30 damage and ascends a unit. So basically, if we had an enemy, it would take that unit, deal 30 damage, and move them up. Maybe, you know, it would have been better to have it move them down, but, you know, that's not going to help us on the bosses because they can't be moved down because the floor underneath freezes over. But here we get to choose a card, a unit, and we are, this is an interesting one. We do have the DLC on, so I'm not sure if this is in the original without the DLC, but this gives you the ability to kind of sacrifice a card. We'll pick one of these train stewards, and it lets you apply certain aspects or essences from that card that you sacrifice to another card, which is pretty interesting. And it can really help you out because sometimes you don't want more of those train stewards, so we may as well get rid of it anyway and apply those stats to another card. So here we will pick, let's see, you can definitely pick the imp or the steel worker. Yeah, so the imp it is. And really a lot of work has gone into these graphics. You know, the cards, they change look a little bit sometimes. They have animations. The battles have good animations and color. So here we get to upgrade a card. Spell Chain basically makes another copy of the card that costs 1 extra and puts it at the top of your deck, I believe. Yep. So we'll use that on the 30 damage and Ascend one. That'll allow us to use that in succession if we need to. Thing is, once you get to the bosses, the 30 damage is not really a lot. So when thinking about strategizing for a game like this, you probably want to spend more on things that really help amplify your units, that don't just have like a static one and done type damage deal. Something that can, heal a unit, regenerate a unit, give them something like spikes or multi-strike. This one we don't have the option to challenge with. All right. So we'll hit some with Sting. That didn't work. I wasn't, really sure if that would on this actually. But it's been a little while since I've tried it. So those bombs up there, you can't knock them out with a card like that. I think they just kind of have to take their effect. If anybody knows, feel free to leave it in the comments. The bosses are really neat too. They all have different kind of personas and looks, and as you go, you get to experience different bosses. A lot of them have their own soundtrack. Yeah, so you're kind of getting to see kind of how these things play out. You're seeing the Dazed is still helping us. We keep getting these Sting cards, which is beneficial. Here we've got that old magic. We got some of these characters up here, or enemies that have a pretty high health. The 50s is pretty high, so we'd want to try to see if we can affect that, or lower it in some regard. Just because none of our characters that we can play, or units I should say, on that level are going to be able to withstand that. So there you can see the sort of putting these into play. The Imp is cool. It adds 20 armor to the front unit, and so when you stack them, the front's got 40 now, which is great. You can see the pyre is going down. It's 55 right now, and the thing about that, you can really see the appeal in taking one of those routes when things aren't going so well, to try to add to the pyre. And I mean, the chances are you're going to get further. You may not complete it, you may not complete the run, but you're at least going to get further, and it's going to unlock some additional benefits. You're going to gain experience from doing that. So it makes sense to try to go as far as you can with it. All right, so we've got some stings. We've got a variety of cards, fortunately, in our hand. All right. Add some regen, maybe. Almost there. This lets us sacrifice that imp for, what is it now, 100 damage. Sometimes you get some upgrades that you think you're going to use and they don't wind up actually getting to use them. Makes you think a little bit about how you want to play your runs in the next time. Here we're losing some pyre again. We're down to 37, and really, it's interesting. You can protect yourself for quite a long time, and then, you know, it doesn't take long once things start getting up there. There is an effect called Rooted, which will hold the units at that top round or top floor for a little bit. I think it's probably one additional turn. That actually helps a lot. It keeps you kind of in the game without losing pyre a lot longer, in my opinion. Alright, so spikes are nice. We'll do some additional damage there. Add some regen. I mean, that's definitely important. You'll see the regen kick in. Yeah, see so there's rage that's you see adding in, and then in between you see those numbers at the top. There's the regen. Then the armor. Yeah, so we'll just try to knock him down as much as we can. He's got a lot to take out. And I don't have that many good units on the board at the moment. Well, let's see, he's at 424. Yeah, it's not looking great. All right. You'll see the levels freeze over here in a second. There are some good indicators that it gives you. You know, you can see the X on the characters if before you even go into the round. You can see the X on the characters, and you can see when one is not going to make it through. You know, it's showing how much damage will be done. It's really helpful when deciding what cards you want to play. This case doesn't matter. Here I'd love to have had an imp where I could do 100 damage. You know, that might put me in a better place, but right now, you know, the hand that I have is not helpful. You know, we've got this 50-50, but without something additional, without maybe, you know, a variety of regens that have been built up over the court from the beginning. If we had pulled him earlier on, that 50-50 is not going to do it against this enemy. You can see the X right now, and I'll keep playing these cards, but you'll see it's still gonna knock through. Alright, so here we go. You can see that health going down real fast on our end. Alright, now he's at 126. You can see how if we had just were able to pull an imp card and take that 100 implosion damage, we would be in a really great place right now. We'd be able to take him out, I think. But because we don't, all we have is these stings, which aren't going to bring it down enough for us to win. But you really are, I mean, you can start to get a feel for how this game plays and how it feels to get to, you know, a decent stage within these rounds. I'm going to use these Ember on this. There's nothing else I can do after that. I'm going to have to waste that remaining Ember. And then we get to see the kickback happen. But you see how fast that pyre is taken. So the cool thing is we didn't finish the run, but we did get, you know, through a little bit of it. And we get to see some of our cards level up. We get to see how we did, some stat changes. So it does make it more interesting. It is worth it to keep playing through. And hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what this game is like. Until next time.